for everything that we deserve, but at the same time, like, we need to play basketball. That's what our fans crave, and that's what all of you crave as well, is you want the product on the floor. And at the end of the day, that's how you make the money, that's how you're marketable, that's what the fans get excited about, that's what the fans want to show up for. So, you know, it's business and it's a negotiation, and there has to be compromise on both sides, and, you know, we're starting to get down to the wire of it, and it's become really important, and, you know, obviously I want to help in any way I can, and I've tried to educate myself the best I can. Obviously, I can't speak to every single one.
Imagine being at the peak of everything you've ever worked for. The spotlight is brighter than ever. The audience is finally listening, and the future you dreamed of is right there in front of you. Now imagine being told it could all be taken away. Not by a competitor, not by a failure, but by a stalemate in a boardroom. This isn't a hypothetical scenario. This is the exact precarious cliff the entire WNBA is standing on right now. An entire sport is holding its breath. The 2026 season is hanging in the balance, caught in a high-stakes negotiation that could either cement this era as women's basketball's great breakthrough or become its most devastating self-inflicted wound.
NBA fans are so excited because Caitlin Clark is finally back on the court playing basketball, and it seems like she is 100%. She is going 5v5. Team USA is currently holding their training camp. So all the ladies will be in Durham this weekend training. As you can see, the roster here: Lauren Betts, Aaliyah Boston, Cam Brink, Paige Bueckers, Veronica Burton, Sonia Citron, Caitlin Clark, Kalia Copper, Chelsea Gray, Brittany Griner, Dearica Hamby, Kiki Ariafen, Rakia Jackson, Brianna Jones, Kelsey Plum, Angel Reese, Juju Watkins, and...
At the very center of the storm is the league's brightest star, Caitlin Clark, who just issued a warning so clear, so urgent that it cut through all the legal jargon and financial talk. She said the words every fan is terrified of hearing: "We need to find a way to play." But what she revealed next is a shocking truth behind why that might not happen. This is a fight over the soul of a league in the middle of a revolution. And before we dive into the battle, make sure you're subscribed and have notifications on. What you're about to learn will change how you see every highlight, every game, and every headline about the WNBA from this moment forward.
I think there are different things that we can find ways to say, no, like, we certainly deserve that, and we're not going to compromise on that, and then other things that we can probably compromise on. But like I said, like, this is the biggest moment in the history of the WNBA, and I don't want that to be forgotten. And it's important that we find a way to, you know, play this next season, and I think our fans, and even everybody that has played in this league that has come before us, deserve it.
Read to prepare for the future, but a shadow loomed over court. When Caitlin Clark stepped to the microphone, she didn't just talk about her recovery or her excitement. She delivered a message that resonated like a fire alarm, a stark warning that cut through the usual athlete speak and went straight to the heart of the league's precarious situation. She called this the biggest moment the WNBA has ever seen. Think about the weight of that statement. This is a league with decades of history, filled with legends who fought for every inch of respect. And Clark, the player who arguably embodies his explosive modern growth more than anyone, is saying right now is the most critical point.
For Caitlin Clark's answer, thank you, Caitlin. This is the biggest moment the WNBA has ever seen, and it's not something that can be messed up. I feel like I have been screaming this at the top of my lungs through all of the messiness that has happened over the past 2 seasons in the WNBA. You have a moment right now in women's basketball, and specifically in the WNBA. You have a boom that we have never seen in the history of this league. Do whatever you can to not mess it up, and they've already done multiple things that is like shooting themselves.
But then came the gut punch. She immediately followed that by pleading for the 2026 season to be saved. We need to play basketball. She said that's what our fans crave. At the end of the day, that's how you make the money. This wasn't just an opinion. It was a strategic assessment from someone whose arrival helped spike attendance and TV ratings by astronomical percentages. She admitted the talks were complicated, but stressed there has to be compromise on both sides, revealing a pragmatic understanding that even in a fight for what you deserve, you must keep the engine of the business running.
Against them. Kelsey Plum off the screen, kicks to Caitlin Clark for 3. Caitlin Clark up the court. Another 3. Caitlin Clark off the screen, another three. Her shot looks really good. There were other photos of her going around, I feel like the past couple weeks also, saying that it looks like she dropped some of the muscle that she did gain before last season. It's hard to tell. To be honest, you guys, I'm not really like body watching Caitlin.
Her teammate, Union Vice President Kelsey Plum, framed the tension even more bluntly. She called the state of negotiations disheartening and expressed raw frustration with how far away we are. The league's brightest star, whose marketability is at an all-time high, and a key union leader were publicly sounding the same urgent alarm, but from slightly different angles. One emphasized a non-negotiable need for games, while the other stressed a distance to a fair deal. The question is, why is a chasm between the two sides so vast? The answer lies in two explosive, deeply personal issues that cut to the very core of what it means to be a professional athlete in this league. One is a foundational benefit on the chopping block, and the other is a billion-dollar divide over the sport's future wealth.
You know, we had the photos last year from Media Day when she was like flexing and all that, and you could clearly see that she had put on a lot of muscle, but it's hard to tell here, so I'm not really going to comment on it. But there were some fans that were saying it looks like she dropped some of the muscle that she put on, and a lot of people were wondering if that is why she had so many soft tissue injuries during last season. But again, I don't know, so I'm just going to leave it at that. And here's another clip, you guys, of Caitlin Clark's signature three. She's dribbling the ball up the court, goes to her left, step back.
Understand the tension. You have to understand one of the league's most shocking proposals. For decades, one of the foundational comforts for WNBA players has been team provider housing. Since the very first CBA in 1999, teams have been required to give players a furnished apartment or stipend. It was a recognition of the modest salaries and the grueling transitory nature of the career. A player could be traded or cut at a moment's notice, and a league ensured they had a roof over their head while focusing on their craft. But in the latest league proposal, that requirement is gone. Poof, eliminated. For the players, this isn't just a perk. It's a top 5 priority in these negotiations. Imagine you're a rookie or veteran on a non-guaranteed contract. You get traded or signed to a new city. Your job is to perform at an elite level from day one. The last thing you need is the stress of finding an apartment, signing a lease, and furnishing a place in a city you might only live in for a few months.
This is the kind of basketball that so many WNBA fans have been missing. And there's another clip that is also currently going viral, and it's Paige Bueckers' sidestep three on Caitlin Clark. And now, obviously, the Caitlin Clark haters are loving this, but I also love this too. I love to see two great players like Paige, like Caitlin, playing either on the same team or against one another. But check this out. So there's a long rebound here. Paige gets it, pump fake, sidestep, drains the three, and that is...
One player told ESPN, "I shouldn't be stressed about where I'm going to live when my job is to play basketball." The league argues that with massive proposed salary increases, players can afford their own housing, bringing the WNBA in line with other major pro leagues like the NBA and NFL. But players like New York Liberty guard Natasha Cloudfire back that this makes no sense. Salah is the same league-wide, but rent in New York or the Bay Area is in a different universe than rent in Indianapolis or Phoenix. A huge raise could be swallowed whole by the cost of living in major markets, instantly putting those franchises at a competitive disadvantage when trying to attract talent. The league has offered to help players in certain transitional situations, like if they are traded mid-season. But for the players, removing this bedrock security feels like a fundamental step backward, not the progression to a more professional league they were promised. It's a removal of stability in exchange for higher, but unevenly impactful numbers on a paycheck. And this issue exposes a critical philosophical divide. Is the WNBA a unique ecosystem that needs tailored solutions? Or should it simply mirror the models of older, wealthier men's leagues, regardless of context? Housing is just the first layer of the dispute. The real war, the one that will define the financial future of every player for the next decade, is being fought over a single explosive number, the revenue share. If housing is emotional hard to fight, revenue sharing is a multi-billion-dollar brain. This is where the negotiations have hit a concrete wall. The WNBA is on the verge of a financial windfall. New media rights deals are set to kick in, and the league's value is soaring. The players see this historic influx of cash driven in no small part by the attention they themselves have generated and believe they are entitled to a fair, transparent share of it. Similar to the NBA's 50-50 model, the league's latest offer does include staggering salary increases. On paper, they propose a supermax base salary of $1 million with potential revenue sharing pushing total earnings for those players to more than $1. $2 million. The minimum salary would jump from about $66,000 to around $225,000. The average salary could reach $500,000. These are numbers that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago and represent a massive leap forward. But here's where the players say the deal falls apart. According to reports, the fine print of the league's complex revenue-sharing formula would result in the players receiving less than 15% of the WNBA's total basketball-related revenue. Even more shocking, that percentage is projected to decrease over the life of the deal as league revenues grow. For context, under the current CBA, players receive about 9.3% of revenue. So, while the raw dollar amounts look huge, the share of the pie they represent is causing outrage. It means that as the league grows exponentially, the players' relative piece of that growth would actually shrink. WNBA President Nneka Agwemike summed up the players' frustration perfectly. "We don't feel valued in these talks. I feel like we've been heard, but not listened to. The players aren't just asking for more money. They are demanding a fundamental restructuring of how the league's wealth is distributed. They want a system where their compensation is directly and meaningfully tied to the business's success, which is exploding because of them. They see the leagues offer big salaries without a meaningful revenue share as a way to cap their upside while the owners reap the long-term benefits of this boom period. This isn't just about the next contract. It's about securing a foundational economic principle for generations to come. And this united front isn't just coming from the veterans. The new generation, the very players driving this boom, is locked in, educated, and watching everything. One of the most powerful visuals of this entire process was at Team USA camp. Of the 17 players there, 11 were age 25 or younger. This included Clark Bueckers, Ree Cameron Brink, and Rick Kia Jackson, many on rookie contracts whose entire financial futures will be shaped by this single document. They aren't passive bystanders. Angel Ree called them the young and turnt crew and stated clearly that the veteran leaders are fighting for their generation. Ree emphasized that everyone is riding to get on everything, preparing for a season, but demanding a fair deal. Paige Bueckers said she's been educating herself on the specifics and that the players are firm on what we believe and what we stand for. Clark herself leans heavily on her team's union representatives like Alia Boston and Lexi Hall to understand the complicated numbers, showing a deliberate effort to be informed despite the complexity. This solidarity across generations is a nightmare scenario for the league. It's not a divide between old stars wanting paydays and young players just happy to be there. It's a unified coalition. They are dug in on a holistic set of demands that go far beyond just salary. They want the core designation, the WNBA's version or franchise tag that restricts player movement, eliminated entirely. They want rookie contracts shortened so players can reach free agency and earn their true value sooner. They are fighting for paid parental leave and for minimum standards for team practice facilities and medical staff. This is a comprehensive push for dignity, power, and a seat at the table. The young stars understand that the veterans like Mike Plum and Alicia Clark are fighting battles that will pave the way for their own careers. This intergenerational alliance removes the lead potential leverage of relying on inexperienced players to break ranks. But as they stand firm, empowered, and united, they are also staring at a calendar. A hard deadline is approaching, and the clock is ticking down to a date that could bring everything they built to a screeching halt. The fuse on this entire situation is very short. The current CBA has been extended twice and now has a hard expiration date of January 9th, 2026. If there's no deal by then, the league doesn't automatically shut down. They would enter a status quo period where they could keep talking under the old rules. But the door would be officially open for a work stoppage, a lockout by the owners, or a strike by the players. The immediate consequences of missing that deadline would be chaos. The league still needs to hold an expansion draft for the new Portland Fire and Toronto Tempo teams, which can't happen until a new CBA sets the rules. Last year's expansion draft was in early December. We're already in mid-December, and it's still on hold. Then comes free agency, which is set to be a historic frenzy because most veterans signed one-year deals last offseason. Anticipating this new financial landscape, the entire offseason calendar, expansion draft, free agents and negotiations. The WNBA draft in April will be compressed into a mad dash, damaging teams' ability to build rosters and players' ability to make the best long-term decisions for their careers. But the real existential threat is the loss of momentum. The WNBA is coming off a season where it felt like it finally truly broke through into the mainstream sports conversation. A work stoppage would be a catastrophic self-sabotage. It would tell millions of new fans who finally tuned in to go away. It would tell corporate partners betting on this growth to pull back. It would hand all the oxygen and attention to other leagues, including new off-season competitors like Project B, which is reportedly offering salaries as high as $2 million and has already attracted major WNBA talent. As Clark implicitly warned, you can't make money, you can't market stars, and you can't excite fans if there are no games. This is the ultimate leverage and the ultimate risk. The players have never had more power. But using that power to trigger a work stoppage is a gamble with the very future they are trying to secure. The league, meanwhile, risks alienating its workforce and its fan base if it is seen as unwilling to share the wealth during a period of historic prosperity. So where does this leave us? We are in the final weeks of the most important negotiation in WNBA history. On one side, a league proposing record salaries, but seemingly unwilling to grant a truly equitable share of its booming revenue or preserve key quality of life benefits. On the other, a united players association from legends or rookies demanding nothing less than a transformational deal that reflects their worth and secures their future. Caitlin Clark's plea for compromise hangs in the air. It's a recognition that the perfect deal might be the enemy of the good one and that the cost of not playing could dwarf the gains from any negotiation win. But compromise requires movement from both sides. Will the league improve its revenue share model to a percentage that feels like true partnership to the players? Will it find to create a solution on housing? Perhaps a phase-out stipend tied to local cost of living rather than cut it entirely. Will the players identify their absolute non-negotiables, likely a meaningful revenue share in core reform in areas where they can bend? The path forward is a tightrope. The players deserve a system that respects their role as the engine of this growth. The league needs a sustainable model that allows for continued investment and expansion. But both sides share one terrifying risk. If they fumble this moment, if they let deadlines pass and games disappear, they risk unraveling everything they built. The fans who packed arenas, the young girls who bought jerseys, the media that finally gave consistent coverage. Their patience and passion are not unlimited. The 2026 season is more than a schedule of games. It's the next chapter of a revolution. The players hold the pens. The league holds the publishing rights. And they are currently arguing over the outline. They have until January 9th to start writing the story together or risk closing the book entirely. What happens next will define the WNBA for a generation. What side of history do you think they'll be on? Let us know your thoughts in the comment below. And if you want to stay updated on every twist and turn in this high-stakes drama as the deadline approaches, subscribe and hit that notification bell.